Hey, welcome, Brittany. Welcome, Joseph. If you guys, we'll wait just another minute or two. It's not quite 7 as people start to join. And you can open the chat feature over on the right-hand side and chat with one another. Yeah, as folks start to join in here. We are recording, so we're live, as Justin said. Don't say anything bad about Pastor Jim or anybody for that matter. Yeah, we're recording, and at 7, I don't know about y'all, but we're going to get rolling, and Emmett's moderating. He's going to kind of roll with the stuff and work us through our agenda tonight. And hey, at 7 o'clock. Hey, before you get started, Emmett, for you guys who are watching and folks who will watch it later, we want to go ahead and get started, be a respecter of everyone's time. Want to say a big shout out. If you look over in the participant list, you'll notice Joseph Colston. Welcome home, Joseph Colston. He is Captain Joseph Colston. He's our assistant district attorney in Rome, Georgia, Floyd County. He's a JAG in the United States Army, and he just finished up a very long deployment. And so, Joseph, welcome home, my man. We are glad that you're back on U.S. soil. You're not in Georgia yet. You're in Texas. Got to quarantine for a bit, but welcome home, my friend. We missed you. We love you. It's been good to chat with you on the old WhatsApp along the way. And so welcome home, my man. And I hope you enjoy getting to interact with us tonight.
All right, as we get started, Justin, would you open us with a word of prayer tonight? And then we've got kind of an agenda that we want to roll through, kind of talking about where we've come from, where we're going.
Sure. Lord, thank you for this opportunity we have to gather in some way, for the technology to make this possible, to have conversations like this. Pray that as we talk, our words would be fruitful and encouraging and uplifting, that you would give us grace to bear with one another during these days of conflicting information, and help us to keep our focus on loving you and loving one another, and making disciples of all nations. And so we pray that you'd be glorified in our time and in our words and in the way that we love one another, that we put on display the power of your kingdom well. We pray this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Just a reminder, we do have that chat feature open, so if you guys have questions, feel free to shoot those into that chat. We will answer those mostly as we go. We may save a couple of them towards the end, but we will definitely do our best to answer all of those. We kind of want to talk about what we've done so far and why, related to the coronavirus and our meeting. And so, guys, who wants to tackle that, kind of what we've done and where we've been the last few months now?
Well, I'll start off, Emmett. I think our aim through all of this is to really pull out a Romans 12:17 to give thought to do what's honorable and right in the sight of all, for the sake of what the scriptures teach us to do, and a command to love one another well. So the truth of the matter is we've tried to practice the biblical ethic of doing what's honorable for everybody. We've tried to honor the authority God has placed over us, and those who are trying to do good for us. We've tried to organize and lead through our radical life groups, as we're in an unprecedented time, and the great majority of our people are in groups and so are accounted for. We tried to work toward regathering, right? So we've been working toward trying to get ourselves back in front of each other well. And we've tried to do that all in a manner that's honoring to the Lord, honoring to our authority, and honoring to one another. So we've really striven a word, to try to manage this most unmanageable, difficult time. And so that's a very 100,000-foot view, but that's been our heart and our intention and our ethic the whole way.
Yeah, and I know this seems like it's been going on forever, but we're really talking about a matter of about 4 months now, and we have been able to build back, and we are trying to continue to build on attendance as far as inviting people to the live stream now that's been up and going for a while. It is our goal to more and more be able to be together as we worship together. But as we do that, let's talk about, or Justin or Jim, y'all have anything y'all want to add to that?
I would just add that if someone's watching this and you haven't been invited to attend the live stream, make sure to text me so that you can be added to that. We've tried to account for everybody that we can, but in case we miss somebody, please let us know.
Yeah, and I'll say all of our contact info, both emails and cell phone numbers, are on our website, threeriverc.org. So you can find us there under the About Us Elders page, and we'd love to not only just get you there for a service if you haven't been able to be there, but also if you have any other concerns, we'd love to talk about it and to be able to address those with y'all. So the big news that is impacting our week right now is most of y'all know, last night our city council voted on a new mask mandate that went into effect today. And so we want to talk a little bit about how that impacts us and our future plans in the context not only of just what the ordinance is, but also thinking first as Christians, thinking first as fellow believers and about what our witness to the world is and our care for one another is. So somebody want to jump in on that?
And just a reminder, you do have the guys have the Q&A feature at the bottom, or they may have it at the top of their screen, so you can ask your questions and it'll pop up for us and for everybody to see. So use
Either
that
ask a
feature
question or put it in chat, either way.
Yeah.
So I guess I just jump in and the mandate, thinking through what's right, what's biblical, what's true. It's important for us first to frame it as it's not an attack on the church. That's sometimes quick to be jumped out as, is this singling out the church? And it's not, but it does affect how we meet and how we gather and how we do that well and how that impacts our witness to the world. How do we put on display, as I think Jim said to me earlier, how do we put on display the glory of Jesus and the glory of his name when we gather? So it has implications for us when we meet. Jim or Mitch, anybody want to add to?
No, I think you're right. It does. The implication, as they've asked us to comply with a mandate within the city, the confines of the city of Rome, and they're very clear that this does not apply to the religious or faith gatherings. And of course, they don't understand. They're not speaking from a theological framework of ecclesia, the people of God. They're thinking buildings. So that mandate does not apply inside our space at Unity Christian School or for any other building. But for other city public spaces, it applies. So I do want to reiterate that the reason we know they're not trying to pull some government conspiracy to squash the church is they're seeking to obey the not restricting the establishment of religion or the free exercise thereof. So we don't have to wear masks in our gathering on Sunday mornings, but they are asking us to wear them if we're out in public in the city. And so they're encouraging us to wear them in the church, but this is not some government thing to take away our freedom. And I think that's important that we understand that and don't hang out in that narrative because it's untrue.
Yeah. And I think we are going to, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're going to recommend that when you come to the live stream service, wear a mask if you're comfortable. If you're not, or if it's not something you want to do, I don't think we're going to enforce that strictly, but it is a recommendation from the city and from other health officials. So we have masks on hand, or you can bring your own. I think something we'll also probably try to encourage a little bit more appropriate social distancing as we're gathered, especially as we have guests that start to come in, because we do want to be a place where they come in and feel welcome. And
So somebody just asked. Go ahead, Emmett.
I was just going to say, so just the I guess the big gist of tonight Well, let me back up. I'll answer this question and then I'll proceed. So it says, I saw the religious groups are exempt of the mask mandate, correct? That is correct, as Mitch was saying, if we are in our own building, in our own space. So that would apply to us inside of Unity. It would not apply to us, for example, if we meet in the park, if we meet in some other location in public, we would need to be to wearing masks. But one of the bigger questions that we want to address around this is not only what is not just what's legal or what's allowed, but also how do we as believers best give a public witness to Jesus, and how do we best live out the one another's that we see in the New Testament, these 59 one another's that we read. You know, I think about 8 of them are some form or fashion of love one another, but commands like Romans 12:10, be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. Romans 12:16, live in harmony with one another. 1 Corinthians 12:25, have equal concern for one another. Colossians 3:13, bear with one another. So how do we live those out as a fellowship when, particularly on this issue around masks, this has become a very polarized issue in our culture? You will find people on both ends of a spectrum. You find people in our own congregation there's a whole spectrum of belief, from this is completely mandatory and everybody should do it all the time, to this is completely crazy and nobody should ever do it, and everywhere in between. There's people along that spectrum. So how do we live out those one another's when we have differing beliefs, and we also realize that the issue of mask is not an order of first importance issue. This is not, for example, something that we would separate over in our fellowship, like it would be if somebody said, I don't believe in the divinity of Jesus, or I don't believe in the resurrection of Jesus, or I don't believe in the authority of the Bible. Those are first order issues.
Right.
But this is an application of biblical truth issue. So part of what we're going to talk about is how do we live out these one another's in this context. So
that's particularly what we're going to talk about on the sermon coming up. So I'm not going to preach that now because that's like 50 minutes.
Yeah,
I'll be preaching Romans 14, so you guys can speak to some of that as well.
Okay. So and we can get to this in a little bit. You know, like what role does civil disobedience play in the life of a believer? When is that appropriate? When it's not appropriate? But you know, the big, I guess, when we planned this meeting, what we wanted to talk about initially was our plan for this Sunday night, July 19th, our worship service in the park, and then beyond that, how we would build back into worship gathering. What has transpired over the last week plus has really kind of caused us to reevaluate some plans, and particularly with the mask mandate, and knowing that would apply to us in the park as we meet Sunday night, has caused us to kind of reevaluate that decision, because we didn't want to be the church that showed up and we were either divided over this issue, or we were flaunting not wearing masks in public, and it became about us and our rights versus putting Jesus on display publicly, or it became something people didn't want to come to because they didn't want to wear a mask in the summer heat for 2 or 3 hours. So big picture, we've made the decision to postpone that event, and we're going to go back to live stream Sunday morning. Hopefully we'll be able to do this in the fall, but it just doesn't look like it's feasible this evening. And we're going to try to build towards bigger Sunday morning events, still doing social distancing, still being cautious and encouraging people to come and wear masks.
Right. So really what we're taking, you know, we talked about July 26th, and our aim was on July 26th, you know, a few weeks ago, our aim was to all of us be back in the room at the same time without kids stuff going on. But as we get the mandate and we're continuing to see the encouragement to keep our gatherings at a smaller level, we decided to up our number, and Justin can speak to that in just a minute, increase the number of Radical Life groups attending a live stream, as well as open our doors, because we've actually had some visitors find their way into a locked building to visit us. And so we're going to increase the number of people attending worship. we're going to make room for visitors, and that'll make it possible for your group to get into live worship in person more frequently. And so we're going to move that up from the 26th to the 19th rather than do the event in the park, so that we can be a little freer and a little more frequent and have a few more people in the room. And so that's going to be our aim. And Justin, why don't you go ahead and speak to that a little bit? You've already put a rotation together.
Yeah, so we'll be sending out information tomorrow with all the details of who's and when's and all that. But so for the past 5 weeks, we've been on a rotation that's gotten everybody through one time to attend the live service in person, and everybody else watching live stream. So the new rotation will get everybody through in 3 weeks. So 3-week rotation, everybody will be able to get through. And so we're going to plan that out through 2 cycles of that, and that will get us out 6 weeks. And because of the rate things are changing and guidelines change, we're not going to plan further out than that right now. And we will pivot and adjust as we're able, hopefully towards increasing our capacity to attend together. But we also know that things change. And so you'll be getting some details tomorrow with when you can attend and your group can attend and all that. And we're meeting with life group leaders tomorrow to give them all those details. And so that will be starting this Sunday. And in addition to that, we'll be coming through the front doors. So we've been coming through a side door because we were trying to really keep a control on who was there. We didn't really want it to appear that we were open for, public services, just trying to keep a good handle on who's coming in and making sure we had things set up appropriately. But this Sunday we'll have the front doors open. They'll be propped open, able to come in, come up, and if guests show up, then we'll have a place for them. So our capacity will increase starting this week. It'll get everybody through a little more frequently, but still meeting off-site in your life group, watching the live stream when you're not. It's not your week.
Right. So I feel like there's a little bit of like, oh, that's not so good news, but it's bookended with really good news, and that we can get more in the building together, decrease the amount of time between you being able to come live, but even the interaction that will take place between the 2 groups that are coming the same Sunday. So you'll be seeing not just your group, but you'll be seeing folks from other Radical Life group, and be able to mix a little bit and connect to one another while appropriately distancing and taking care of one another. So that's really good news to me and to my ears.
Yeah. So we're taking small steps. It's a step forward while still being conscious of all the differing opinions and things going on and complying with appropriate guidance.
And the different needs, health needs, health situations in our congregation, both for members and for those people that they're responsible for. We're trying to, again, do these one another's well for each other, not just what is good for me, but what is good for the person that I'm impacting.
That's right. That's good.
Can I jump in here and say a few things? I just want to admit that we know that a lot of you are terribly frustrated and disappointed. And this has been going on for a while. And a lot of our decisions have been questioned, some appropriately. Some have said that we are not presenting any hope or any valid plan. And I just want to, the goalpost, the target has been continually moving on this. And we're not from anybody else in our society that we don't know what the truth is. I don't think anybody knows. Nobody knows when a beneficial vaccine is going to be available. Nobody knows if masks work or not. Nobody knows what we ought to do. What we do know that initially cases, hospitalizations, all the occurrence of the disease, of the epidemic decreased substantially. And we made plans according to that and according to the governor's 3-phase program that he first came out with, which was all a hopeful scenario. And everything has changed. It changes every week. It changed last night. And we're doing the best we can. And I just want to remind people that for us as Christians, as the Church of Jesus Christ, the issue is not our personal safety. It's not our personal desires. It's not about our rights, whatever we suppose they might be. All of the things that we're trying to address have to do with the good news of Jesus Christ, the good news to the world. I've been thinking today that I would love to just sit down with Jesus and ask him something that was so popular, I guess, 30 years ago, before many of you were born, and that's, what would Jesus do? You all remember the shirts and the bracelets and the hats and all of that. And, I think if I were to sit down today and ask Jesus, okay, what would you do? I think he would look at me like he looked at Peter and some of the other disciples and said, millions of people are dying every day in this world, and many of them are going to hell. And you're bickering about face masks and personal rights. I'm an old guy. maybe I don't have the patience. My sweet wife just told me to calm down, and I am calm. But I just think we need to in proper context. What are we up against here? We're up against the evil one, and we're up against how do we proclaim a message that is winsome and hopeful to the world. And one way we do that is by not arguing among ourselves. I've done a lot of arguing myself here in the last few weeks, the last few months. And every conversation is, well, what do you think about this? And this is what I think, and I think you're wrong, and I think those people are wrong, and I don't know who's wrong, and I don't know who's right. But I do have an idea of how we should act as brothers and sisters in covenant fellowship and trying to present hope to a lost and dying world, hope and truth. And I've also been thinking today, Paul had 3 favorite words, and you all know them. He used them a lot in a lot of his letters. We all know them from 1 Corinthians 13, and it's faith, hope, and love. And these 3, love being the greatest, these 3 are to remain, and these 3 are the way that should characterize our life with each other and our lives to the world. And you can read those passages in 1 Corinthians 13. You know them by heart. In Colossians, the 1st chapter of God, he says, we always thank God the Father, our Lord Jesus Christ, when we pray for you, since we have heard of your faith in Christ Jesus and the love you have for all the saints. That's for us, for each other, because of the hope laid up for you in heaven. Of this you have heard before in the word of truth, the gospel which has come to you is indeed in the whole world it has, bearing fruit and increasing. And I think these are the things that we should concentrate on, and we should ask ourselves a question when we consider our response not only on this, but just about everything. How am I reacting out of hope? How am I reacting out of faith in the gospel of Jesus Christ? And how am I loving the world and the saints? The fellowship. And so I just want to say we are as frustrated, maybe even more, than many of you are. And I think we need to concentrate on the positive things that should characterize a Christian's life. We know the ending.
Amen. That's a good word,
We
Jim.
should
Thank
have
you.
hope.
Yeah.
And all of this is based on our faith in Jesus Christ. And I'll shut up.
That's good. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, so that's kind of the gist of it. We do want to be open to questions from y'all. We do want to be open to, addressing those here or addressing those one-on-one if you would rather do that.
Hey, Emmett, you did mention talking about when is the proper time to civilly disobey? Because I know there are folks that are probably going, why don't we just not do it, right? Why don't we just disobey? I'm going to pop up on the thing over here a link to a podcast that'd be worth people listening to on that issue by 9 Marks. But I think that's worth a few minutes of discussion.
I sent you a comment, Mitch. You need to change your thing in your chat to show all attendees so everybody can see that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the issue
gotcha.
of civil disobedience, when do we disobey the authorities, really does come down to when they treat us differently than everyone else and prohibit us from worshiping in the way that we have been called to worship. And
That's right.
There's nothing in this mask mandate that actually gives deference to the church over and above other groups and organizations.
That's right.
And so,
That's right.
we're not living in Pakistan or Afghanistan where ladies have to wear burqas, not just a face mask, or where you have to observe Sharia law, or all kinds of things that our fellow brothers and sisters deal with in other nations, and still have a positive Christian witness. So
that's good. Bobby Jameson says, you civilly disobey when government commands what God forbids and forbids what God commands. And I think it's a good application or a good rule of thumb in how Peter and John applied that in Acts, and how Paul applied that, how, there are times he worked within the government framework at Philippi. He was beaten and he said, no, you beat me unjustly. They're going to come and do justice to me, or I'm going to raise a stink. And then Peter and John goes, we got to obey God, not men. And so when the government crosses the law of God, we disobey.
Yeah, and Justin pointed this out. We talked earlier today. This has happened in our country during this coronavirus pandemic in Kentucky, where they forbade churches from meeting but allowed other groups to meet. If that happened, we would civilly disobey that, and churches did in Kentucky, and they quickly sued and won and got that executive order thrown out because it was unconstitutional. It did put an undue burden on churches that didn't exist for other groups. If that happens, we would be quick to fight over that. We'd be quick to disobey over that. But what has happened so far has not been anything that is undue, exercise of our faith.
Absolutely. In fact, I would go so far as to say the church has been America's greatest partner in working to help stem the tide and carry the message to care for other people and care for other people well. And so I think we have upheld an integrous position that gives validity to our ministry in the public square. And I'm proud of that. And in fact, it's been the church overall that I think been the government's greatest partner right now.
Yeah, and the governor even said at the start of all this on a call with pastors that there was not going to be much they would mandate for churches. They would recommend a lot of things, but in recognition of the First Amendment and religious freedom, they weren't going to try to mandate a lot of things for churches, but they would greatly appreciate the church complying with other guidelines as they would expect anybody else to. So I think it's a great opportunity for us as a church, and we have displayed that as the church to be wise, to comply, to work with the city, the government towards positive solutions, as we've been able to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't see any other questions or even comments or snide remarks. I'm taking that as there aren't any, but if you have them, we would love to be able to answer those. If we don't get any in the next couple of minutes, we'll probably wrap this up. Guys, what else do we need to discuss this evening?
I do want to say to our people who are going to watch this later, we only have about, 18 attendees out of 1,500 people. Listen, if you're one of the two groups that are coming this Sunday morning, be ready and come with Romans 14, because it's the most practical instruction in the Bible on how to live out our call to offer our bodies as a living sacrifice, which is our worship, and to owe nothing to anyone except to love them and love them well. And we're going to look at 11 ways that passage teaches us how to do this well. And it's couldn't be more applicable right now. And so for those of you who can be present, I want you to have your Bibles ready. And those who are live streaming, have your Bibles ready. The notes are already on the blog because I preached this past week up in North Carolina, Sunday evening, in fact. And it's been the go-to passage since March. And so I just want to say to Three Rivers, you guys, let's epitomize Romans 14 as we move forward on mission together.
And before we answer these two questions that kind of popped up, I would just say that when we get angry about things, like we're angered over a mask mandate, or we're angered over why can't we do this or that, it's always important for us to ask, why am I angry? To be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. So when we get angry, it's not always a bad thing, but it's important to pause and say, why am I angry? What's making me angered by this? Before we respond, so that we can still respond in a appropriate way to whatever situation we find ourselves in.
Yeah,
it's good.
Good. A couple of questions that have come in. One that we answered, but by chat, but I want to answer publicly too. Says, so we can invite guests back to church with us again. And the answer to that is absolutely yes. We would love for you to invite people to church as it is your group's turn or your turn to come to a live stream. But we would also like to know beforehand how many people are coming with you so that we are properly prepared for that. If you're bringing 10, we may not have space for 10. If you're bringing 2 or 3, we probably do, or 4. So we'd love to know ahead of time. Just give us a heads up so we can be properly prepared for that. Also, we want our radical life groups that are coming together to be prepared to have one person at least to greet at the door and somebody that can hand out the communion elements. Right. Just as a very basic greeting function. So be aware of that. Another question, has there been any consideration to temperature checks at the door?
We probably need to, we've talked about, we probably need to do that. We have digital thermometers we use for our students when they went to Snowbird, and that's going to be a component we need to, greeter. It's going to be a way to practically serve one another is hit that forehead with that, hit that with our little thermometer gun. And I think, it's just going to have to be done. It's going to have to, it's a necessity.
Yeah. So the answer to that is.
I was told yesterday.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was told yesterday that from the husband of a hospital employee that the hospital has or is thinking about implementing, rather than temperature checks, smell tests. They say that loss of smell sensitivity is a better judge of infection than temperature is. And so I don't know, maybe we'll have one pot of coffee, and if you can smell it, you can come in, and if you can't, you gotta leave.
I'll bring Daniel's laundry from camp, and that'll test them real fast.
I do want to say we're going to have something special. We are going to have something special Sunday morning, and we're going to be the church as always, and we're planning for Evan and Aaron to be baptized immediately following the service. And so, we're still functioning as the Church of Jesus Christ and doing the things that he has instructed us to do.
Yeah.
So feel good about that. And we
Amen.
do want to eventually have this public worship service at the park. And we just want to do it when we can really celebrate and not be anxious or disappointed or fearful or angry when we do it. So
Yeah.
just keep that.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, good question. Another question, is there a maximum number of people who will be allowed to attend worship this week? So Amy, we are inviting radical life groups as well as individuals who are not members of a radical life group who are members. We're shooting for about 60 or so each week that we invite that could, if everybody showed up, and we've got space for about 75 properly socially distanced. So we're trying to leave some space there for other people that might show up or for visitors. But that's kind of been our approach. I don't think that this past week was probably our biggest week so far, but we still have had enough room. But that's why we're trying to invite by groups and specific individuals just to make sure that we do have enough space to do that well.
Yeah,
And
that's
we'll
good.
be increasing that a little bit this next go around. So we'll be inviting closer to that 75 number in that space to fit maybe 90 people.
I think you guys answered this already, but one was when we find out the rotation of small groups for the next weeks. Justin
Yes.
answered that a little bit ago.
Yeah, so that'll go out tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I'll actually send a text message to life group leaders after this, just so that they can have a step up, but they'll probably get that out to you guys tomorrow. I'll send some emails out.
Yeah, that's good. I'd say something too, just a very real practical thing. As you're seeing people in different radical life groups for the first time this coming Sunday, or seeing people that you haven't seen in a while, people's comfort level is different. Their risk tolerance is different. So if somebody asks you, can I come next to you? Can I come close to you? Well, first, maybe ask if you can approach somebody, be considerate and ask if you can come closer. And if they say, and if you were asked that question, be honest, say, no, I'm uncomfortable. Part of loving each other well is being able to communicate clearly and honestly and respectfully with a loving tone. And so, man, just be honest. If you're uncomfortable getting close to people, tell somebody, right? You guys know I'm not the hugger guy. And sometimes people try to hug me and I hug them back because it's not all about me. But this is a good excuse for some of us introverts to go, oh, man, you stay over there. But you need to just be honest about it, right? Just be loving and be honest. And if somebody's honest with you, don't be offended by it. Receive it and say, thank you for telling me what you really think and feel so I can love you well. And when you do that kind of stuff, it's hard to get offended. It's hard to be mad at anybody if you love that way.
Yeah. And we understand that sentiment. We miss you guys. We wish that we could all be together, and we are longing for the day when that is possible and happens again.
Right.
And we know it will be here before too long, but in the meantime, we're going to persevere with what's in front of us, and not forget the mission that Jesus has given us, which has not changed. And I think in a lot of ways we have new and different opportunities to speak and to demonstrate that mission.
That's right. That's good.
All right. If we don't have any other questions, I think we're going to wrap this up. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. We hope to see you soon, either in person or live stream. And like I said, if you have other questions that you don't want to address in front of the whole group, please do get in touch with us. We'd love to talk with you. We'd love to take you to a coffee shop wearing a mask going in, or anywhere else that's appropriate, meet you in the park or something along those lines. So get in touch with us if we can help you in any way. If your family needs anything, certainly we want to be able to minister to you guys. We love you and we appreciate you very much. Y'all have a good night, and we'll see you soon.
Love you guys. Good night.
Yeah.